All right. Do you have an idea of your color scheme, your palette on this one? Which red? Okay, Lizerin. Okay. Gotcha. How you doing, paint liquor? Let's see. Might get a couple of messages from work throughout this. So. As I say that, I have somebody messaging me asking for something. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Pretty straightforward. All right. And we can walk through like kind of the colors I'd recommend for ground and all that here in just a second. I got to reply to this, and we can kind of. Of course, my phone won't let me do it. So off to the actual internet. Yep. My phone doesn't like anything that needs me to do Google authentication, whatever words. Let's see. Okay, that is 11 o'clock tomorrow. Good. Let's see. And so you have the Winton starter set and a couple of Gamblins, correct? Oh, okay. All right. Um, let's see. Cadmium red light, Naples yellow. I'm trying to read your. Okay. I mean, yeah, you can still. Okay. Um, so my the recommended so I guess I'm gonna like over explain this, especially for like people who have no idea what's going on. So generally what you want to do for when you're using the oils is just like when you watch um, Bob Ross paints something, right? He always lays down a ground color, a foundation. Usually for canvas, that's going to be like white. Um, right. So we're kind of doing the same thing, but because we're going over such a small surface, um, we're not going to use foundation with white paint. That's why, like I suggested, priming it in the lightest color you could. That's going to act as your white foundation. Because oils are a lot of them are transparent. You're going to want that white foundation prime to show through to help. It'll make the colors look a lot more vivid. Um, yeah, no, I mean, like mine's a flat gray just because that's what I had when I primed it. I just would like just to suggest people don't prime in black. Like painting oils over black is pretty hard. Um, you'll have to make sure that all your paints are opaque, which you can do, but it limits your ability a little bit. Um, oh, and then talking about the colors you're using, so you're a lot of it's red. Alizarin Crimson is a decent underpaint for reds. It it's kind of a cool red that's transparent. So that would be a recommendation for that. Your yellows, I would suggest probably using whichever most yellow brown you have. Um, mhm. Okay. That'll okay. Yeah, the otter sloths I'm not sure about, but if you know how they act, Van Dyke Brown's a pretty good color as for 1 second. All right. First time my dog decided to try to climb up onto the table. Um, so when I normally do yellows, I'll usually use Indian yellow as a ground because it's a nice staining yellow. But if you don't have that, Van Dyke Brown's not bad. It is dark. So depending on how your cadmium yellow is going to be very strong. So painting over Van Dyke Brown wouldn't be difficult. So that's an option. Um, or your burnt umber. The Naples yellow, your cad yellow, and what was the other one you said you had? Yellow ochre. Those I personally don't like using as a ground color, but they might work. Um, I'm going to drop your quality on this end so my bandwidth is angry at me. All right. And then your blacks, well, you can definitely paint your blacks how you would normally underpaint your blacks if you like using like a Prussian blue or a little bit of that mixed with like your ivory black. That works just fine. Um, and then was that all the colors pretty much? Oh yeah. Okay. Um, I would suggest honestly using the Van Dyke Brown for both the hat. Oh well, but you're using Artist Loft, so I'm not 100%. Yeah, you can always wipe it off. Yeah. Van Dyke Brown's a perfectly fine underpaint for skin tones. Um, I personally like a color called transparent maroon, which is a Winsor Newton color. But pretty much any brown is a good like. Traditionally, people use burnt umber mixed with your red and your yellow to make skin tones. So even if you want to use burnt umber as a ground, that's also perfectly fine. Okay, yeah, I mean raw umber's okay. It doesn't when it comes to choosing the colors for your ground, you generally want to use colors that are a little more stronger on the tinting side. Things like the raw umber and the raw umber and raw sienna are very like weak colors. They're great for like mixing in tones and stuff like that, but as a like the moment you paint anything into like the raw umber, it'll like obliterate it. It's not a very strong color. So that's one of the things you have to learn with oils is which colors tint more than others. Um, when you're using the acrylic miniature paint, they're all generally around the same tinting strength. So it's a little bit more predictable. So it's one of the parts of the learning curve for this. So I'm gonna leave you. So when you're thinning your stuff out, don't use too much mineral spirits. If it's looking like an oil wash, that's too thin. Because when you go to paint into it, that mineral spirits is going to, of course, affect how you can paint into it, and it's going to make it really difficult. Um, so just thin it down just enough to where it's nice and smooth on your palette, and then just smash paint around on your model. So I'm going to go and do that as well on mine. I'm going to pick out a couple of colors. I'm going to use alizarin crimson as well, actually, for my moon. I'm going to make this like a blood moon. I'll get that on here. And I am using some of my pre-mixed oils that I made. It's not necessary. It's a thing that a lot of us who are starting out messing with this, we're trying out. It's not worth the effort. It really isn't. Let's see. I'm trying to think what color I want him to be. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, let's see. I want trying to think if I want him to be gray. I didn't plan in advance on this, so I'm kind of Ooh, I'm gonna use this nice. So like PR 101, which is iron oxide, has like a dozen plus different colors. And I really like what's called Mars Violet Deep. It's like a purpley brown. Winsor Newton tube just warped out a whole bunch of oil onto my palette. So I'm going to wipe that up here with a piece of makeup sponge. And I just paint over it. Um, the only time I'm like really precise with my underpaint is when I'm using the phthalos because they're incredibly strong tinting, and when I'm using um, Dioxazine Violet because it's also very tinting. Alizarin Crimson can be a little bit, but um, I wouldn't really worry about if you're painting yellows. Like if you're running it into browns and yellows, I wouldn't worry too much about it. But if you were running it into like green, I would worry about it. Let's see. One second here. Okay. And then one it'll slow you down quite a bit if you worry about it. And when it comes to you painting over it, it's not that big of a deal. Uh, yeah, I mean that's for canvas. Oh, yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, just using, if you paint, you are going to be painting very thin as you do this. And as long as you keep your paint fairly thin on the model, it will dry within 48 hours most of the time. There are certain colors that can be a little squirrely and take a while. Some of them dry a lot faster. It just kind of depends. Let's see, what else do I want to do here? He's going to kind of be a warm fur skin tone. We're going to have a blood moon. Um, if you want to do it gold, gold color, just use, I would use the same underpaint as your yellow, and you'll just work it up a different way. Let's see, what else do I want to use here? And what I like to do when I'm doing, especially when I'm doing my underpaint, uh, in like browns and stuff, I really like to grab a couple of different ones to kind of mix them together on the model. And it just allows for a more interesting color palette when you start painting on top of it. It'll blend differently. You know, it'll just look different as you. Exactly. Yeah. Let's see. What else do I want? Red, red. Oh, let's see. You can do a green, blue. We're going to use some Prussian blue. I love Prussian blue. Use a Prussian blue for his cloth leathers stuff. Yeah, I mean, this is not, definitely not the time to be like precise and technical and stuff. It's just a, I'm going to have to grab my actual tube of Prussian blue here if I don't have enough in here. Nerd Holla, hello. Okay, let me start getting some paint on here. Um, and I generally use the cheapest brushes I can find for this step. Um, I quite often, uh, my brushes are nice and exploded for this step. Yeah, and I'm just, and what I, you know, what I find more important now is just to make sure that every inch of the model is covered with paint. So my plan is to just kind of cover everything with this Mars Violet, Mars, yeah, Violet Deep, and then kind of go back in on top of it with a couple other browns just to give a little bit of variation. I really like doing like monsters and large, you know, surfaces with oils because you can just play around with colors so much. Or rather, I find it easier to play around with colors. Annoyed right now because I like screwed my wrist up, and I went to the doctor yesterday, and of course it's one of those way it works for me is like got to go to my primary care provider and like knowing full well that I need to go see orthopedics. I had to wait for an appointment for my primary care provider and then to tell me, okay, well now you can talk to orthopedics, and I called them this morning and they're like, we don't have an appointment until mid-July. Like, thanks for that. I'm so glad I wasted the time coming to you so you can tell me the thing I already needed to do. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, if you don't want to run your colors together, it's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, I just bought myself another pack of these cheap brushes. Hmm. Tricky because his skin is showing through the chain here. I actually have to paint it the skin tone first. Yep. I'm going to thin this down a little bit more so I can get into these crevices of this chain. Hooray! It's got a lot of skin to cover, or fur to cover. Yeah, you'll just have to kind of see how it thins out because the biggest difference between those cheaper paints and the more expensive ones is the pigment load. And when you're thinning the paints down so much for miniatures, the cheaper paints may break apart a little bit, but some of them don't. Just kind of have to test. Okay. Yeah. And some of the cheaper, like when you're using things like the Thalos and the Doxazine, like having the cheaper ones actually isn't bad because they're less pigmented. So they're not quite as powerful, which is can be a good thing. But you definitely won't get the nice vivid tints out of it, if that's what you're looking for. Because both those color, both the Thalos and the Doxazines make really pretty tinted colors. Good. Was that the Gamblin one that you were using for the alizarin? Okay. And some of your paint, yeah, some of your paint will look spotty in this stage, and that's fine. Yeah. Um, and your transparents will, have that effect a little bit more than your opaques because just, transparent. And chances are the reason why your Van Dyke Brown is not as spotty is probably more opaque than it should be because it's cheaper. What they probably did is they added either titanium white and or um, a fixative that kind of helps make it opaque. Is there extenders and stuff that are cheaper than pigment? Okay, so yeah, PR101 is iron oxide and PPK 11. I'm not sure actually off the top of my head. That's I mean that's I'm assuming PPK 11. I don't have my actual tubes out of the blacks. What qualifies as cheaper paints for oils? Like your artist loft, like your like Michaels and Home Depot, your Michaels and Hobby Lobby uh, store brands, and also just to uh, as you might be, buying what's it called? I've tried a couple of the Bob Ross paints, and they are meant for a specific style of canvas painting. They are very thick. I would not recommend them for mini painting. Yes. Yes. Yeah, they'd be great for terrain. You're doing impasto or just really. All right, so I got all the surfaces more or less covered of that in that. So I'm gonna start throwing some browns on into that to make it a little bit more varied. We got some burnt umber and some Van Dyke brown out. Yeah, because the actual Van Dyke brown is oh no, this is PR 102 and PBR 7. So that 102 is, yeah, PBR 7 I think is raw umber. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, yes, it won't taste very good. May or may not. I mean, you'll know. You would have paid for those those paints. Well, and that's but like definitely with the cheaper ones because they probably have titanium white in them. Like you don't want that. Yeah, skin tone is very red. We'll see how that tints out. I might have gone a little too far, but that's okay. Then we're gonna throw. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the more red parts in the deeper shadows. Then all like these muscles, I'm going to put in some um, burnt umber. I'm just kind of slapping that on top of what I already put down. What I'll probably do too is grab a little bit of a yellow just to have a couple, a little bit. That's bizarre. Oh, random licensing bundles. Okay. And then you could, yeah. You'll just work up each of those colors differently. Oh, Lord. Yeah, it sounds frustrating. Okay, there's that. Gotta kind of hold this steady. So I'm really rough when I do this. Sometimes I gotta make sure not to pop the model off of its mount. Oops. Mm-hmm. I don't have to worry. It's like I'm not worried about the brush. I'm just trying to get paint everywhere. UV tools. Interesting. So many nooks and crannies on this model. Okay. Yeah. I like using indigo for steel. I don't know if you picked that one up. Okay. Um, Prussian blue will probably be your better choice for that out of those. Mhm. Let's see. What else do I want to have a so much brown in this model? Let's see. Okay, I want that to be blue. Let's see. He's got this. Need a little bit more. There it is. And your piece will definitely look a little rough and ugly for first large bit of time on it. Mm-hmm. And I mean, yeah, because essentially you're doing the same thing as you would if you were doing a bunch of underpaint with acrylics. You're just layering it all down first and trying just to, plan ahead on what kind of colors you would like in different areas. Um, if you're a painter that likes to do one little section at a time, this particular method of oil painting is not quite going to work for you. Me either. Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I see posts on like Instagram and stuff where it's just like a like knee pad. Yeah, it's like cool. That I mean, yay, good job, but I could never. Yeah. How? Just how? Meticulous work. And that's too high stress for me. I like just this. Oh yeah, I mean my hands are always covered in paint by the time I get through this part. Nope, I just put paint on it. Yeah, I mean, I I generally like will just paint, pretend the eyes aren't there. That's how I normally do it. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, fine detail as long as because even if you're painting, you're going to be painting a complementary color on those buttons or whatever. It's such a small surface. It's going to be one raised surfaces you're going to be pulling most of the paint off of, right? And because you're going to be painting a tiny little object, you're not going to be blending the surrounding area into it. So it's a lot easier to paint detail. Uh, Defiant Bidet, yes, Epic Duck is also trying oils today. Yeah, so I very rarely pay attention to the smaller detail at this stage. Nope. Let's see. I'm not sure what I want to do with this dagger strapped to the back of his moon. Very easy to grab, I'm sure. Yeah, it's for when you fall and your buddy picks up your gear. Like free loot, sweet. Okay, I'll work up with my alizarin next, I think. And what I will do is, since red and blue don't play well together, I'll swap to another junk rush to paint in my Prussian blue. Yeah, if you are like just a, I find it easier since I got a 30 pack of cheap brushes. Uh, just swap if I'm going to be hitting complementary colors in my on my palette. Just don't mix the brush. Don't use a brush to for both those colors just to make it easier. Because yeah, you can take the time to wash out your brush with mineral spirits, and then make sure it's nice and dry and all of that, or just use another cheap brush. I'll just do the later. Yeah. Well, I mean, not too big of a deal. If you're going to be doing that with a sponge. Yeah. All right. Blizzard and Crimson time for the moon. Hey PSK, how you doing, man? I already knocked out my work for the day, so outside of random phone calls I might get or messages. Yeah, it's the chaos stage. Oh yeah. And if you wanted to, you could have just used your black for that, but I like generally doing like a Prussian blue for my blacks. There's a lot of painter's choice when it comes to this, just like anything else, right? That's something that's kind of hopefully going to be doing this weekend. So I broke my stand mixer that I had gotten for free. Like it needed to be serviced because it sounded like a coffee grinder, which that's not normal. Yeah. So my plan was, okay, I'm gonna buy some food grade grease, open it up, replace the grease, check to see if there's some gears that are fucked up, and if they're bad off, I'm gonna just replace them. Well, in order to get into the KitchenAid stand mixer, there's a little rolling pin that is on the planetary uh, portion, the thing that holds the like your attachments. You cannot service the thing without removing that pin. I I mushroomed the end of a push punch trying to like knock that pin out with a rubber mallet and a punch. Like it, I w yeah. I now granted this thing was like a 30-year-old KitchenAid. It had never been serviced. I'm pretty sure it had rusted and seized. So WD-40'd it. I like tried to like cool it and heat it and all this other stuff. Well, I finally gave up and then went to plug it in to turn it back on. It doesn't even like try to turn on. It's just like nothing. So I think I must have, yeah, I must have disconnected some circuitry somewhere, but like I can't even find out because in order to look at it at all, yeah, because without removing that pin, I can't look inside of the machine. So I can't even repair the thing that I broke because, well, I guess just screw me. So I got my hands on another secondhand one um, that is in perfect condition because it was still in box, never used. Yeah, um, but I'm going to call only having to pay $100 for it uh, versus the $400 that a new KitchenAid is. Um, you know, ideally, I wouldn't be spending that kind of money on it, but I don't really have, if I want to do this, I don't really have much of another option. Um, so that's all said and done now. I got that, tested it out, it works. Um, I've got a like neon blue and a neon green I haven't tried yet, and I now have the appropriate like additives that help with making paint. So we'll see because the last two that I made were a little chunky, a little chalky. And I think what I got should help that out. I have a better understanding of what I should be doing. And so we'll see. Hopefully this weekend I'll find out. And then from there I got a whole bunch of like other little test pigments to make. I got those like Prolex mica powders that I've kind of fiddled around with in the past. Um, we got some crazy like color shift chameleon stuff to play around with that I got from a company for samples. Yeah, Defiant. You can use a stand mixer instead of mulling for hours, or rather, you'll still use the stand mixer for hours, but you can turn it on and walk away. Yeah, it's technically slower than mulling, but you don't have to do it because mulling is just a monotonous, you know, task. Yeah. mm, also delicious. But yeah, the idea is just to be able to make kind of more miniature focused paints, like the metallics, like color shifting, fluorescence, things like that, that are either completely not available or hard to come by. Okay, well, you're going quicker than I am. That's good. That's good. Right. Yeah. And I've messed around, like I said, with the Perlex stuff in like really small amounts, like a drop or two of linseed oil and like a little tiny dash of the pigment, and like mixed up some stuff, and it works. But it'd be a lot easier, to just have it in a tube ready to go, mixed to the proper consistency and all that. Okay, so I did that. Um, let's see what else. Okay, now I'm going to grab a different brush to do my blues. I really like Prussian blue color. And if I get a little bit of it on the skin, I'm not too worried about it, especially if it's in like the shadows. Okay. Um, so the next step would be just to take your sponges and start pulling paint off. Now, where you want the color to remain more words. So try not to pull paint out of the recesses because you want to have those darker colors in the recesses. And then on your broader surfaces, maybe use a little bit more pressure to pull more of the paint off. Um, don't use any mineral spirits because it'll completely wipe off everything. Just use a sponge. I generally kind of wipe, but I don't use a whole lot of pressure because I'm not trying to like rip the paint off. So if you're doing it and like the paint is like completely gone, then you're pressing too hard because you are trying to leave some paint behind to use as a blending layer. Okay. Um, okay. If you're finding that it's kind of doing that, like hit your blues first with a brush. Like I would cut your pieces down too. Like I cut mine into like little tiny bits. Um, I cut into like eights. And yeah, if your Prussian blue is bothering you, use those smaller sponges, pull off the blue first, then use a different little bit of sponge to do the rest of it. Let's see, yeah, more or less. I generally define bidet. I generally will go ahead and lay a ground down on the entire model, even if I'm not going to get to it in the session I paint, because it will still be there as an underpaint. And if I have to go back and repaint it because it's completely dry, then I just go back and repaint it. Like it's not a. I'll just be a little bit more precise in the process. Oop, that was way too wet. If you go to put paint down and it runs like you were doing an oil wash, that's too wet. Yeah, there's plenty of times where I've gone back to a metal and my paint's dry, and you know, if I need that blending layer again, I'll just grab that same paint that I originally painted it and just okay. Well, go ahead and just keep removing stuff, and then uh, the stuff that hit blue, go back in with your alizarin or whatever you need to, and just kind of retouch it, and then wipe it off again. Not ideal, but nothing's ruined. Well, look, a part of the model I forgot to paint. Yeah, like the parts that I have blue that I got Russian blue on, I'm going back with my other brush and just painting the red back in. Yeah, sometimes you do got to be a little bit careful with how you're wiping stuff off. Mm, yeah. Okay. Um. Yeah, I guess I'll just paint this blue. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that's, that's fine. It'll dry. Yes, proper wiping is important for this step, paint liquor. When you get down to, actually painting it, if you have to go in and paint more like you would normally paint with acrylics, that is perfectly fine. It- yeah. Um okay, mostly done here. I would need to figure out what do I want this little arm guard to be. I think I want it to be a different brown from everything else. So I'm gonna grab, let's see, I'm gonna grab some Terra Rosa. Nice orangey brown. I'm also gonna put a bit yes. What's yeah, those commercials are creepy. Those Charmin commercials with the bears. What it's like enjoy the go or whatever. It was some weird like, you know, euphemism for taking a shit. a little bit of this Terra Rosa into this axe handle. A little warmer. Same thing with the skull up here. A little bit of this random coloring. Some of these bone surfaces. The hair. Terra Rosa is one of those colors I like to throw around a lot on anything that's slightly brown, just to give it a little bit more color depth. Okay. And then for the axe, let's see, what do I want this axe to be? Do I want it to be stone? I think it is supposed to be stone. If that's the case, I think I put down some Perline Black, which is like a green black. Yeah, try that. Perline Black is, I think, one of the few like transparent blacks. It works as a pretty good underpaint, I think, for like iron because it's a bit of green to it. Um, or even like black leather. And of course, you can just throw just a touch of a green you have into your lamp black or heavy black or whatever. While the temptation to collect them all is still there with oil paints, you don't need to. But if you find yourself constantly having to mix certain colors, then that's when you go and find a color that's a little bit more helpful. Yeah. Let's see here. All right, make sure to get that paint into these little engraved texture on this thing. Let me pull up on the bigger. Okay. Yeah. I would, to me it seems like either had too much mineral spirits in it or you wiped too hard. It's hard to say. Now you should be fine moving forward. But like you see how like there's still a decent amount of paint in the hat on like the top and the side, like in the hair too. Like that's more of what I normally expect. Um yeah. Now it should still be fine because you still do have what effectively is a pin wash in all those like recesses, right? So you still should be fine, but I would normally expect more paint like what you have on the hat hanging around. But yeah, those big smooth surfaces, unless you have a really strong staining color up. The Prussian blue is not quite as strong as a staining color as, like, say, the phthalo, so it's not going to cling to the underpaint quite as much. But there's still some there, even though it looks very white. Yeah, right. And okay, okay, yeah, and that'll happen. Okay. Well, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take a bio break here real quick, and we can continue from there. So I'll be right back. All right. Okay. Was that the alizarin again? Okay. Yeah, you can. There you go. Yeah, that looks a lot more gentle. Gotcha. All right, I'm mostly done here. I'm just gonna always got to give a good once over on my model, make sure there's no like obviously missing parts with, especially in the nooks and crannies. I don't want to have to go back in and try to put color into the nooks and crannies anywhere. I mean, yeah, but that's why you use a second, you know, just tear your sponges apart and just use a little bit of another sponge for your different stained colors, like the ones that are really bad. Like, so if I was using, because I have Prussian blue on here too, right? Oh, I just realized that it's a part I need to repaint. But I'm gonna use a sponge just for the Prussian blue, just a sponge for the alizarin crimson. Gotcha. Gotcha. All right, let me grab a spot that I missed. Didn't get the paint on the side of the thing here. No. Okay. Yeah, you may want to go back in on top of it. Okay, is that all the surfaces? Let's see here. And I'm sure inevitably I'll be in the middle of painting it and I'll be like, oh, my piece of model I didn't paint. Yep, that's almost definitely what's going to happen. Like holding him at this angle that I'm currently holding him in, I see that part of his hand underneath one of his fingers is paintless. Yep, something dark. Yep, exactly what I'm doing right now. Just a couple little spots where I need to just jam this brush in there. Again, why I use such cheap brushes, because sometimes you just got to stab color in places. Okay, I'm going to call that ready to wipe. What I like to use is, where is it? It's a lot easier to hold stuff. Let's see, when I switch to oils from acrylics, go Pokemon on go Pokemon on tubes. Is that what the hip kids are saying these days? Going Pokemon, going Pokemon on tubes. I guess. Oh yeah, yeah, that makes more sense. I was thinking like for some reason my mind went to like putting too much paint out. I was like, I don't understand. Mm-hmm. Now this is coming from somebody who has about 50 tubes of oils and also making my own oils, so I shouldn't say nothing. But a lot of it was me going, no one else is using this color. I'm going to experiment. I only probably use, yeah, I'm only probably using about 15 paints. Okay, so I am going to, so I use these like reverse tension tweezers nowadays. I just find it helps me get into the nooks and crannies a little bit more. So I'm going to pull off this Prussian blue first. It also kind of keeps me from putting too much pressure on it. And this is also an opportunity, if you want to kind of use your sponges as a paintbrush and like blend colors in, but you're doing pretty flat, colors. Yeah. If I have like some yellows and also some browns, I might, mix those a little together with the sponge as I go and not really worry about it because it's like, oh, well, that looks nice. Okay, just gonna drop that. Now for the Lizard and Crimson. And also, the longer you leave the paint on the model, of course, the more it will stick, stain. So sometimes, I'll kind of put the model down for a little bit and come back to it after 10 minutes or so. Just give it a little bit of time. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if you see like my Prussian blue and my alizarin crimson are still, it's not coming off quite like it did on on your flat surfaces. The parts that are kind of hidden in there, I'm not going to even really bother trying. It'll give it a deeper, more saturated shadow. Is that all pressure, or is it fact the paint set a bit more? It's a combination. The fine bidet. It's the one, like I said, I like using the little tweezers because it keeps me from like trying to scrub the paint off. Um, and because it'll flex a bit, and if I let it sit for a while, it'll definitely stain a bit more. And so if you're using, like, if you want to use a color that doesn't have a whole lot of tinting properties, you're going to want to let it sit for longer if you can, to get the same kind of effect. And the parts that you think, you want your higher highlights on, take a little bit more time and wipe off more paint. Because like if you were doing canvas painting, and you wanted, say, a certain area to be where the face would be, and the face is going to be the focus of your portrait, you would pretty much just completely remove the paint if you were doing a canvas painting. Need another sponge. Okay, you're watching me. I didn't realize you were watching me. I was in the zone here. Um, you notice like stuff like this Terra Rosa, like it doesn't even look like I'm wiping anything off. It's just so strong of a tinting. But I assure you, it is pulling off because it shows up on the sponge. And hey, look, a stone. Stone's got all kinds of colors in it, so I don't care if my sponge has got a whole bunch of colors in it. I'll just kind of do that. Then let's see. And then I do want to the chain that's on his wrist. I'm going to spend a little bit of extra effort trying to pull paint off of it because I wanted to paint the skin underneath it, which is why it looks all red. And going back in afterwards and try to like pin wash in skin tone is just going to be a pain in the ass. So now I'm going to. Okay, then let's see. Then a little bit more off the chest here. Face. And that'll pretty much be good to go. I do want, generally you want your face to be one of the brighter parts of your model, so I'm going to pull off more paint. Nope. Oh, my dog might start barking at me here in a minute. All right. I think I'm satisfied with that. All right, I'm going to pitch away these sponges, and then we'll get to the next step. All right, you have some flats? Do you have some flat brushes? You have one? Okay. Um, I would. Well, what do you feel like working on next? Don't know. Okay. If I was working on your piece, I generally go with the larger surfaces first, just because I like having that sense of completion. Um, so if you want to, I generally go with whatever the larger surface is. So on this model, it'll be the skin tone. So I'm going to work on the skin tone first. On yours, it's going to be that red metal, right? Or ceramic or whatever it's supposed to be. So yeah. Um, so for you with the red, you have your cadmium light, red light. Okay. So excuse me. I would honestly just grab your cadmium, put a little bit on your palette, use a flat brush, and start. You're going to kind of like dry brush it onto the model. Um, if you find that as you're painting that it's not quite bright enough or quite the color you want, uh, because when you're going to be doing this step, you're blending on the model. You're basically mixing paint on the model. Uh, Generally, what I'll do is, I want to. Oh, Emerald Sundice scared me there. um, I will, say I want a value of 5 on the model on that area. Well, because I'm painting onto a darker surface, I'll actually grab paint that's maybe value like 2 steps brighter because you will be mixing on the model. Um, I would see what the cadmium looks like just straight up painted in. Um, I always kind of start on the higher edge and then kind of paint in and see and then blend down into the shadows. If you like doing it the other way, you know. I got to decide what his actual skin tone is going to look like, though. So I got to think about that. Yeah, I would treat it like you're dry brushing stuff. Um, if so, like I see how you're like moving around your glass palette. If it looks like there's very little paint on your brush, then that's as much paint as you want. Like you want to pretend that you are doing a very light dry brush with acrylics. And if it's not quite enough, get a little bit more paint. All right. What do I want his skin tone to be like? Hmm. Okay. Yeah, if it is a little too orange, maybe mix just a tad bit more of your just a tad of your alizarin into it. Because I think the red light is a very like close to orange red. Um what do I want? If I painted him reddish, I want let's see what happens when I use this warm gray I got. I'm gonna be kind of seeing what happens here. And Emerald Sundice, glad to have you in. If you're working on anything, you're welcome to share it. And Discord and Instagram is whitelisted. If you would like to show off anything you're working on. I'm gonna grab that. I'm gonna grab this light gray to see how that looks. Maybe a huge mistake. I need to get rid of all of these dropper bottles. Just give them away so I can stop using them. Right, we'll see what this looks like. So I'm gonna grab myself a okay. Okay. Yeah. You may be um a little too heavy on your brushstrokes. Um because I know I've seen that like if you have like a really stiff brush or you're really hard with the brushstrokes when you're starting when you're okay. Yeah. I mean you can take like, a synthetic, round and kind of flatten it out a little bit and get the same kind of effect. Um oh, don't start making noise at me, girl. Yep. All right. So I'm gonna see with just like painting in a gray, a light gray looks. This may end up being a travesty. Okay, yeah. So that's something I guess I should make sure to mention is like when I say dry brush, I don't quite mean the way you would do with acrylics. Yeah, I guess I should say like feathering or something like that. Yeah. Mm, trying to think. Not sure about this color. I'm just kind of testing out what this is going to mix like on his arm here. I don't like that. Mm, let's see. What do I want to try instead? Let me try Naples yellow and see how that looks. You may end up very flesh tone looking. Um, Emerald Sundice, you can post Instagram or Discord uh, links. If you have something else, let me know and I'll give you permission. So I don't really care for that color. Let's see what this. I think Imgur is also whitelisted. Let me just go ahead and give you a permit just in case. Okay, I'm going to try on his other shoulder this Naples yellow. Yeah, I think he's going to end up very flesh tony. Which I should have realized using the color I used. Spellin Mitsander's other guy is Epic Duck Studios. There should be a rotating link coming through every now and then with his info. We're both working on some oils today. Okay, what about if I use some of the cadmium instead? I'm just experimenting at this point to see what blends I like for this tone. I think I prefer using the yellow. Maybe I'll do that. Let's see here. Emerald Studios. Okay. Yeah, if you're seeing brushstrokes, it's more likely you probably were just too rough with your brush or you're using a brush that's really stiff. But nice bright colors. Okay, so I'm going to grab this. I got some cadmium yellow deep here. I'm going to just use as my flesh tone work up here. Kind of pulled this gray off here. I know, girl, you are so neglected. Such a neglected dog. Yeah, it's been Only 2 hours since I gave her plenty of attention. No, she's used to my wife being home, and like she just like sits in her lap while my wife works. Kind of doing here is I'm gonna lay this yellow in. I'm kind of just playing around. Feel like I maybe chose poorly with the underpaint. That's okay. I'm gonna paint this yellow into it, and then I'll probably end up doing some like fur texture and like a gray on top of it. Mm. Part of me may actually just go back in and paint in some yes, I know. I know. I apologize if a bark start blowing people's eardrums out. Nope. Get out from underneath my desk, please. Out. Out. Out from under the desk. You're gonna unplug stuff. I'm gonna hook her up with a TRE AP here so she can entertain herself. I'll be right back. All right, that should occupy her for a minute. Um, I might honestly grab some cadmium red and make his fur red. Because I'm not liking the yellow. Yep. All right. Undo. Oh, I'm going to pull this paint off. Go back in real quick with my ground and then try again. That messes up my composition a lot though. Realize that I'm gonna have a red moon and red fur. Ugh. This is why I'm supposed to like take time to plan stuff out. Okay, hold on. Before I continue then, if that's the case. I want to keep a red moon. I don't want red fur. Okay. Change of plans. I'm hand, handbrake turning this mini. Okay. Pulling off as much of red as I can. And I'm just going to go off the art with the blue kind of gray skin tone. Should have thought about this last night. Appreciate it. Yeah, like I try to. I mean, a lot of times I don't really plan, but with the fur tone not working out the way I was thinking it was going to work out, I got to kind of change a bit. And sometimes I do plan, sometimes I do. But like the piece I worked on last night, I just sat down and started painting it. I was like, okay, this works. Yay. Okay. If I want to do that, I need to I don't want to use Prussian blue. Too strong. Mm. Sweet. Yeah, I got like it's been a while since I've gotten hit by bots, and last night I got I think 3. Um oh shit. I'm gonna try something here. I'll grab this kind of mid-tone blue. No, that's not gonna work. Okay, we're gonna try this. Try this warm gray. Oh, he's just gonna be a creepy kind of flesh tone dude. All right, how's it feeling on your end here? Mm. Yeah, that's a thing that kind of comes with just practice. There's definitely plenty of times where I have removed lots of paint, not even realize it. Okay. Yeah, you could, and you can kind of do like some pen line washes. You can thin down if just get yourself a small brush and just kind of little drops of like you were doing a pen line wash with acrylics, and it'll run. I think what I might do is grab some of my Terra Rosa to make it look a little less Caucasian flesh. Very much Caucasian flesh. Kind of get the general colors down here before I worry too much about it. Have a nice one, paint liquor. Yeah, let me grab some of that. Oops. I'm just all over the place today. Yeah, I'm not liking this. I'm gonna take my dog out and think about how I'm gonna recover this thing. Okay, so I think I'm going to go ahead and oh, yeah. So had I thought about this a little bit more clearly, I would have done this to be get go. But yeah, I'm going to go for a more wolf fur texture. Makes sense, right? It's a wolf dude. Maybe not try to do something too crazy with the underpaint I did. So that means I'm gonna have to spend a little bit of time kind of wiping away a lot of this and then repainting it, re-underpainting it, which definitely slows me down quite a bit. Wasted, not wasted time, but less productive, less productive. So I think what I'm going to do is for a nice gray underpaint, I'm going to use that Perlene black, maybe mix just a touch of the Prussian blue to have kind of a green, blue, green, gray underpaint. Stefan's World. How you doing? Welcome in. Okay. Yeah, because if I want to keep the general, I want a blood moon, and if that's the thing that I definitely want, then I need to have a cool skin tone. Let's try this again. When are you thinking taking your like lunch? Okay, I'll do the same. Yeah, understandable. What have you done? Yeah, those ones that I think you're using with the clear handles, I find that they're really stiff compared to like just a normal like nylon, which is annoying. Yeah. There we go. Yeah. Yeah, I mean depending on how thin you put it down, like not even a day or two, just like tomorrow morning, or this evening, you can take a clean brush and something that's soft and just feather. Yep. Okay. For your reds. Okay. Um. Yeah. You have? Do you have a cadmium yellow or a? Yeah. Yeah. Because a Naples yellow will desaturate maybe too much. Um. It kind of just depends on what you're going for. Yep. Yeah. Thankfully, this Perlium Black covers well enough. Make fairly quick work of all of this. And this is the uh, downside of not having that good color theory established and not planning things ahead and not quite knowing how colors mix sometimes leads to poor life choices. Yeah, like a dark green underpaint is definitely a better look. And if you're up for it, we can always do this again another time. If you're gonna you put it aside for a while. Um, what I'll probably do is after lunch, I gotta run another errand, and might just sit down and paint, and I might just join you in Discord or just watch you while I paint. It's always ideally we'd be painting the same thing. But ideally we would have been painting the same thing, but I had a buddy who could have maybe printed something to me with a little bit more lead time, and he's out of town. Awesome. Yeah, there's a cadmium scarlet that's like super beautiful, bright, orange red, but not necessary. It's one of those like nice to haves, but absolutely don't need kind of paints. But and you want to talk about like super bright OSL, like fiery lava. That's the color to go for. And oh, I'll just say it did that on purpose to make the underpainting more interesting. A lot of accidentally on purpose in painting sometimes. I need to get a better. I feel like my stream has gotten super dark recently. I need to mess around with my camera settings. Like even added like new light, like better lighting, but somehow it's darker. I don't. All right, so that's much better. I'm gonna add a little bit of blue into the deeper shadows. Grab my Prussian blue again, which is super gummy for some reason. Oh, it's because that tube is, I think, on the way out. You know what? I'm not going to bother with that. I just use some French ultramarine since I need a pitch. Put this off to the side to remind myself to grab the actual tube. Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes that's. I did a lot of that when I started out. You know, trying to learn in the ropes. It was like, okay, I guess I'll just come back to this. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And a lot of like the ways to fix that is just a less thick underpaint. You may have had too much thinner in it, and so it bleeds a lot when you start painting into it. Um, there's a handful of different little things that can affect that. Okay, yeah, it is definitely like uh can be frustrating with like when I've tried to help people like through Discord or whatever, like just through chat, and it could be like, well, it's either you put it on too thick or too thin. Like, what do you mean? It's like, well, yeah, it, there. Yeah, it's quite that. Okay, actually, that'll look nice. I'm gonna have like this a lot of the underside of him like a little bit more blue, and that'll be a nice contrast against the red. Only I had taken the time to think about color composition instead of being like, "Yay, painting in the morning." Okay, let me. What is going on? Kicked it up to 2000 ISO. Still, yeah. I saw that like you can get at the hardware store like these like shop lights. They're like 2000 to or 20,000 lumens. It's like I think I might just get one, have it over my shoulder, just blasting out all the possible light. Yeah. Okay. Now let's see what this looks like once I pull paint off of it. And where are the scissors? But yeah, I take these sponges and I cut them into like thirds or quarters. Just when I use them. You generally don't need a whole. It's more about total surface area than size. And then what I'll probably end up doing is when I work up this uh, shoulder strap, I'm going to probably push it more green. That way it kind of separates colors values a bit more instead of having kind of blue fur and a blue strap. Yeah, get that away from there. Yeah, that already looks better. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'll just have to admit, this is definitely not the first time I've spent this much time just getting the ground laid out properly. Because sometimes you have an idea and then it just doesn't work, and you're like, okay, well, I'll just wipe it off. And now instead of a weird Caucasian flesh tone, he's going to have this kind of blue green. And that will look much more like a gray wolf skin tone. Hello. Okay. And it's questioning life in general sometimes. Yeah. Hey. So now I could go back into that same gray I attempted earlier. Oop. Brush had a whole bunch of wrong color in it. I need to clean that out a little bit. How is there still yellow paint in this? Jesus. I don't need yellow in my blue. Have a nice one to find bidet. Yeah. I know I didn't get a whole lot done in this time. Okay. Okay. Oh. All right. Let's try this again. I think I want that to be more. Well, no, that'll work as a primary layer. Just need more of it on the palette. Actually, some. Did you say you had titanium buff? Okay, yeah, it's a very good off white color to use. I'm going to use right now. See how that looks instead of the blue. Actually, one of the pigments I picked up is titanium orange. Kind of curious to see how it's the same pigment, just less refined, and it's kind of like a rusty orange color. I need to pull off even more of that. Jeez. Oops. Yeah. No, that I can't like something like Prussian blue happened, something like that too, if I recall. I want to say they were trying to make something else, and it ended up being like a very important synthetic pigment breakthrough. Yeah. Yeah, this okay. Yeah. Put some food in my belly, go drop some stuff off at the post office for me. And then I'm gonna come back and keep working on this. Take advantage of the wet paint instead of putting it aside. I mean, it should last. It should stay wet for a while, but if you need to remove the paint, what I do in this glass. Oh yeah. Do you have like a? Oh, you know the spatula you use for like your 3D printer, like removing stuff. Just scrape it off, or if you have like a little razor blade, thing. Yeah, yeah. I just use a. I have a little like, it's a glass paint remover, like meant exactly for. Yeah, that's what I use. Mm-hmm. Yep. just a little push razor. It'll come right off. Yeah, if you don't want to cross the streams, you don't want to have your oops. Yeah. Oopsie. Yeah. Yeah, I like that a lot more. Yeah. Maybe no, not the most traditional color for a wolf, but it I like it. And like mhm. Yeah, he's kind of this one's because I'm using that perline black, it's got that green in it. So it's a little blue green, but that's perfectly fine. I'm happy with that. And I'm just using this flat brush to kind of, lay in my my it's a light gray from gambling. Um I just like you can grays are easy to mix, but I use light gray quite a bit. Having it just pre-mixed is handy. It's a good like off white, a cool off white versus like the titanium buff, which is a warm off white. Brush vulgar? No. And this, like the way the skin looks right now on my wolf is about where I would leave it, and then I would leave it. I'm going to leave it alone for a while. And the reason for that is it'll give it a little bit of time to cure. And so when I want to do my higher highlights, it's easier to put those highlights down. Mm-hmm. Because essentially what I've done is I've gotten to like the midpoint or like close to the final highlight until you start working towards the more whiter, highly tinted. So you're going to be, you're going to be a little bit more targeted with that. So a little bit more precise instead of this, slapping paint around kind of thing like I'm doing. Then I have a nice little grainer brush that I'll do, and I'll put in some fur texture after that. But you want the paint just to be a little bit cured before you start doing stuff like that. And you got like money to make for a living. Yeah. But I'm glad we finally got a chance to do this. Yeah. Yeah, because it was pre-Adepticon. I think we originally had. Which is good too, because like next week I think my schedule is changing and I'm gonna be kind of like super busy in the mornings for a while. I don't think I'll be able to lurk like I've been lurking. So I guess perfectly, not perfectly timed, but timed to where it could actually happen. And I guess another like quick tip too is like I find that if I hold my paintbrush really far back, like way out towards the end, it kind of helps me when I'm blending like this to, using less pressure. Because if you got it choked up, you're going to be like stabbing your paintbrush in, right? Something else I've recommended to people. And let me actually pull up your screen. If you would show off your model to me again before you're away, then we'll part ways. Let's see here. Yeah, actually, that works really well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got those deep cheekbones. Uh, mm-hmm. I mean, the red's looking fine. Like you can't see brushstrokes on this end, but okay. Yeah, like you see it. Yeah, all the recesses stayed nice and dark, and um, yeah, yeah, I see that. Yeah, I would if you go to feather it and it's not blending out, just put more paint down. But yeah, if you go like try to see if you can find packs of these like Royal Langnickel golden tacklons. Um, the Royal and Langnickel, they're like packs of 30 for like 15 bucks. Um, and they're nice and soft. Uh, I think Michaels carries like smaller packs of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I would just any golden tackle
Okay.
should be okay, I think. All right, man. Well, I will leave you to it. I will go get myself some lunch as well, and I will hop in when I get back. Yeah, thank you. All right, and then we're going to hide that, bring that down here, and I'll hop back on this stream, I think, in maybe about an hour and a half. So if you guys are hanging around, want to join me again here, more than welcome to. Until then, if I don't come back, you can find me on Saturday at 6 p.m.